Right, I think we'll welcome everyone, the public and the councillors, to the Town Council meeting, Monday the 1st of February. We are out of January, into February. And first I'd like to welcome Jeff Cook, who's come along this evening, to start us with prayers, the first time in 2021. And just to say, Jeff, could you pass on my thanks, and I think part of Faversham, the rest of Faversham, for the great carol service that was put online. What impressed me, well, the whole thing impressed me actually, but when I sat and added up, I had no idea that we had got 11 churches, not 11 church buildings, but 11 churches meeting in various buildings, which is quite amazing for a town of our size. So I was very pleased and they are definitely playing their part, Jeff. So thank them all. Thank you.
Will do. Thank you, Alison. Yeah, I'll pass that on. Let's just pause briefly for a moment of quiet, moment of prayer. And as we virtually gather this evening to listen and learn, to deliberate, to discuss, we want to pray for both ourselves and for all those with difficult decisions to make locally, nationally or globally, that both they and we might be guided by not by personal agenda, but by the desire to work for the common good of all, that this world might be led to a better place where trust and honesty are the values that we seek to uphold and demonstrate in all of our decision making. We pray for our community, the community of Faversham this evening, every household dealing with this pandemic in whatever way they can. We especially pray for those who are more lonely than they've ever been, for those who are bereaved and grieving. We pray for comfort and protection, for strength and for provision. And we pray all of this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
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 Thank you, Jeff. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Right, we will go to, the Mayor will allow a maximum of 30 minutes for members of the council to receive questions from registered electors for the town before the formal meeting commences. When providing your name and address prior to addressing the meeting, please confirm or otherwise that your consent to your personal details being recorded in the minutes. Your personal data will be processed as directed by GDPR Article 5. This meeting will be recorded. So if any member of the public has an objection to being filmed, recorded, that's fine. We're not filming tonight. And are there any questions? I do believe we have one, two maybe, from Chris Oswald Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. If I may speak, can you hear me?
Yes, can. Yeah. Definitely, Chris. Thank you.
I've written an email, so most people should have had a preamble to this. Further to my, number one, further to my question raised to the meeting held and the answer per the minutes 7th September last year, 2020, the facilities manager has this in hand. Is there any further update to the overdue remedial actions to the damaged sections? We're referring to the St Nicholas allotment security fence was the subject heading. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Chris. I think Town Clerk has a response.
Yes, I can give an update. The facilities manager had a meeting with Vistry this morning and has made arrangements to have the waste removed from the site. So as soon as he gives them access, so he'll be removing 2 panels from the fence. And as soon as they've got access and they've removed that, then the fence will be reinstated and repaired.
Thank you. That's 2 panels for waste, which is a totally different topic. What about the, I think it's 4 posts that were pushed over by diggers, bulldozers in August last year? Yeah,
that's what I meant. Once the waste has been removed and that fence is reinstated, at the same time, the repairs will be taking place.
Oh, that's listed on his schedules. That's good.
Yes.
Thank you very much. The second question is there any progress towards a definitive result to the still outstanding planning application, which was for the fence 19/506123.
I can also give an update on that if everybody's happy, unless Councillor Thomas, did you want to come in?
I will add to probably what you're going to say, that I sent an email to the head of planning asking for an update on it, but I don't know if Louise has got any more information on that.
Yes. Well, I can confirm that Graham Thomas has been unwilling to speak to Adam until the situation with
Louise has gone silent.
Yeah, she's been having
And-
problems all day with her internet.
Adam's meeting today.
We're getting every other word, aren't we?
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Sorry, I've had really bad internet connection all
I did
day.
say, yeah.
Gone again.
Oh, stop, start, stop, start. Perhaps
Start again. Can you hear me?
you're
Sorry,
stopping,
it's been really.
starting. Yeah, it's not
Am
clear.
I here?
You are?
I'm going to turn my camera off in the hope that that helps.
Right.
So apologies for that. Right. Graham Thomas has been directing Adam to the builders, Bistrict.
We lost her again, Mayor. I wonder whether Clark would like to email a response.
He will make any commitment on the fencing.
Yeah, I think that might be best, Mr. Oswald Jones. We'll get that answer emailed to you. Thank you.
Copy to your colleagues.
Thank you, Councillor Martin.
Yeah, just to keep you updated, there are several issues relating to the site adjacent, which are causing issues for the planning department. And I think resolving some of those issues will result in the resolution of our issue. But it's
Right.
I think some councillors, I don't think it's official yet, but councillors from the two wards in question are aware, and no doubt something will come out shortly.
Great. We will obviously email you, Chris, if that's okay.
And copy to your colleagues, obviously. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. We're probably, I don't know if the town clerk's going to be able to get back in. We'll see how we go. I think, Mr. Jeffries, did you have a question?
Yeah, hello there. Thanks for having me again this evening. If there's a 3-year-old kid in the background shouting his head off, it's the witching hour. So I apologise for that. Yeah, I'm just again, I can't thank you enough for your enthusiasm in the solar cycle way. I'm just seeing it now to sort of take this on to the next level. And I understand that you're talking about the Access Travel Scheme today at some point that Councillor Saunders has proposed.
Yeah.
Obviously, the difficulty of being a campaign group is that it's difficult to have gravitas sometimes, and so actually what I'm trying to do is obviously get political representatives to voice what we're trying to say as well. And one of the things that maybe I could propose is to see whether it would be possible for Faversham Town Council to write to Helen Whately and call the government out on the Traffic Management Act 2004, the management in response to COVID-19, which is talking about how cycling infrastructure can be upgraded. But obviously, you've got your own agenda with the 2020, which is fantastic. But it's seeing whether we can almost write a separate letter as such, just sort of solely about the solar cycle way, but obviously incorporating what you're trying to do for Faversham in general. And I don't know what the thoughts are on that. And the second point is to see whether, the fantastic work that the council have done to get the footpath upgraded from the boatyard to Nagden, to the nearly to Nagden. But what I'm suggesting is maybe we can get some kind of upgrade, a surface upgrade for the cycle path from Abbeyfields that goes past the sewage works, obviously down to the creek and down towards Nagden, to see whether we can get a better surface laid there, if that's possible. So two main points, and I've just seen sort of general feedback to see whether that.
I don't know whether Councillor Saunders, you'd like to come in?
Yeah, I'd be happy to speak, Madam Mayor. I did have a conversation with Mr. Jeffries last week, and we discussed writing to the developer, and also I think we touched on writing to Helen Whately and other people who might be able to influence the situation and help build support for the campaign. I think it would be a good idea for us to write to Helen Whately, establishing her views in relation to the cycleway, and perhaps an opportunity also to say that as a town council we're very keen to improve cycling and walking provision. I mean, we could actually point out that her government has actually in the last year been very supportive of cycling and walking.
And that's the point. You know, it's actually trying to hold the government to account there, because they've been very vocal in coming up with a policy. But now, obviously, what we want to do, sorry to butt in, Mr. Saunders, I didn't mean to, but it's important that we actually hold them to account, if that's possible. And actually coming from a you know, a town council, I think has more gravitas than it does from coming from the solar cycleway. So sorry, Mr. Saunders.
No problem. So I think it would be good to write, and as Mr. Jeffries says, it doesn't have to be in a kind of challenging way. It could be kind of saying, you know, the government supports these things, help us with this particular proposal. In relation to the cycle path, you know, Route 1 around Abbeyfields, I agree, and up the side of the creek, that it would be good to improve that route. I mean, the motion that we're going to discuss, a local cycling and walking infrastructure plan, would be a set of proposals that we would then try and get funding for from KCC, central government, other sources, to improve cycling and walking. So it's certainly something that the people who do the plan for us could certainly consider, and I think there'll be a strong logic to it.
That would be fantastic as well. But also, would that be incorporating the solar cycleway plan as well in part of the overall sort of Faversham scheme?
Well, the cycling walking infrastructure plan would look at walking and cycling routes into the town, and would have the aim of encouraging cycling and walking. And clearly, to my mind, introducing the solar cycleway would certainly encourage people from Faversham to cycle to Seasalter and vice versa. So I think it would fit quite well. And we're also interested in pursuing another project which would be very explicitly looking at improving communications between local villages and the town. And that would be, you know, linking better with Graveney and also with Seasalter would make sense as part of that.
Perfect.
Thank you. I think Councillor Williams, did you wish to say something? No? No, it wasn't Councillor Hook. Thank you.
Very brief comment. It's nice to see you again, Mr. Jeffries. And I wonder if it's worth you engaging also Canterbury City Council, if you haven't already, because the solar farm will back right on to actually going into Canterbury City Council's territory. So I think, as well as getting Swale Council to be supportive, if you can reach out and see if they'll support, that would be that can only be useful. And also MP wise, Rosie Duffield, I'm sure this is the sort of thing she would want to support as well.
That'd be perfect. Again, I suppose the point that I'm trying to make as well is that it's you know, we've really reached out to as many people as we possibly can, but again, because you know, we're a campaign group, you know, and it rather like Great in Graveney, you know, they've done some really fantastic work, but unfortunately it's amounted to nothing, you know, and there's been no concessions in what the developer is offering the community, because it's, you know, my point here is that I think, you know, as the solar cycle way, we've tried to do a lot. So it's trying to sort of, you know, get the political establishment to reach out, you know, and that's where, you know, like I alluded to before, when I've done the presentation, to go back to your respective parties and really sort of bring this up on the agenda. The fight that we have, the big fight that we have, is that, you know, the landowner doesn't have to do it. You know, that's the real problem here. The legality of it is on, you know, is difficult. It can be done, but it costs money, and it's difficult to justify that from the public purse. But if the government are serious about what they're trying to achieve, then this is where it sort of, you know, comes in, and you know, I really take on aboard what you're saying, Mr. Hook, and I've written to Rosie Duffield. And the other key thing here is the people of Sea Salter, that actually, you know, the developer is very, you know, keep saying on about that there's £1 million for SWAL in the coffers, which is actually taxed. But actually SWAL, actually Sea Salter, you know, that are a really main part of the infrastructure there, get nothing, you know, and I think that's sort of criminal in itself. So that is the point I've raised to sort of Rosie Duffield. But as I said, there's only so much that we can do. It's now sort of, you know, we're still there, we're still doing that relay, but it's almost sort of handing on that baton to, you know, and that, because I'm struggling to get to the relevant people. The other point here is that, you know, the landowner, the Goodmans, the Kent Wildlife Trust, London Array are a landowner in this as well, and England are a landowner in this, and it's actually getting maybe Faversham Town Council to see whether it's possible to engage with everyone, because it's trying to bring everyone round the table, which I'm finding really difficult, and especially the landowner is a really difficult person to get hold of, and it's difficult for the campaign group to see, you know, to convince him what we're trying to do, you know. So
I think sorry to interrupt, but I think, Mr. Jeffries, we get your frustration, and I think we will do all that we can, because we are very supportive of the schemes. So if you can email those facts that you've got about landowners, etc., to the office, we'll have all that information as well.
That would be fantastic.
Good. So thank you very much for coming.
Excellent. Thank you for the time.
We love your enthusiasm. It's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the kids didn't shout too much, which is good.
Yeah, thank you. Are there any other questions? Oh, Councillor Saunders, you've got your hand up. Yeah. Oh, you're mute. Can't hear you.
I think Councillor Ben Martin was first, actually.
Right, Councillor Martin.
Thanks, Councillor Saunders. I do agree with what's been said, and I'm sure the Town Council will do all it can, but we do have to be a little careful. We don't want to go treading on the parish's toes. We have to bear in mind that the majority of this development is not in the Faversham Town Council area. It is, in fact, in Graveney and Goodnestone Parish. And as many of us who are at the local engagement forum will note, stepping on the parish's toes is not taken too kindly to. But I'm sure we can lobby, and those of us that are on Swale can do it more directly, can go through the planning department, because I think there's still elements of this scheme that have to be decided by planning at Swale. And I won't go any further because I don't want to predetermine.
Thank you. Councillor Saunders.
Sorry.
Yes, Councillor Saunders, were you coming back in?
Yes, I can do. I couldn't catch the very last thing Councillor Martin said. Could you say it again, please?
Only that there's still elements of this that would have to go to Swale's planning, and that I won't say any more than that, because I don't want to predetermine myself or get myself into a situation where I can't then vote in committee. given that I have an open mind on it.
Fine, okay.
Thank you.
Yes, I suppose I might need to have some thought to that. But going back to what Mr. Jeffries was saying, I think it would be reasonable for us as a town council to write to our MP and kind of explain that we do support the scheme. We've taken a decision to do that, and you know, that if she could be active in supporting it as well, as her government is making quite strong commitments in this area, that would be good, and I'd be happy to work with the town clerk on preparing a letter.
Also, Mr. Martin has made a very relevant point there about so actually trying to get the crossover between Faversham Town Council and Graveney Council, Parish Council, and actually opening correspondence with them, and actually highlighting the fact that, you know, there is support in Faversham for this, and actually nudging Graveney Parish Council as well. But obviously I'll do that in the email, but that's a very valid point that you've made there. It's actually making sure that the councillors who are a big representative of Grey on that council actually listen to obviously what we're trying to do as well. So maybe that could be something I'll write down in the email. Thank you for that.
Thank you. I think, unless there's any other questions from general public? No? Right, we will go on to the agenda. Item 1, apologies. Have we any apologies and acceptance?
No, I've got had no apologies. Everybody's here.
Oh, very good. 2, declaration of pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests. Members who have an interest to declare on any item on the agenda must declare the existence and nature of it at the start of the meeting and act in accordance with the Council's Code of Conduct, S27, Localism Act 2011. Have we any? We've got Councillor Ben Martin.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, that was me just trying to fix my camera.
Oh, sorry, I thought you'd got a pecuniary interest. Right, so no one has a pecuniary interest this evening. No, that's really good. 3, item 3, previous minutes and matters to report. Are there any minutes? Councillor Saunders.
Yeah, could I ask for a small correction in the minutes? It relates to the motion about schools. It's a small thing, but I think it is quite important. The amendment that I put forward was not that KCC ends support for selective and academic and academy schools. That would be a pretty fierce position to take, but it was that it ends support for selective education and academisation. So I'm hoping that that's what I proposed on the evening. I'm hoping the meeting can confirm that that was the case.
It definitely says Councillor Saunders proposed an amendment that KCC ends support for selective and academy schools.
Yeah, that's not what I proposed though.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
what I'm saying.
That's what you're querying. So, Town Clerk, can we amend that?
If you all agree, yes.
Yeah, agreed.
We agree. I agree. Can we, yeah, just show hands. We all agree on that? Yes, we do. Thank you. So that's the minutes for the 4th of January and the 18th of January. Are there any comments on those minutes? No? Do we have a proposer to accept the minutes?
Madam Mayor, can I just have another minute just to look through the minutes of the 18th?
Yes, you can.
How are these minutes put out? Can I ask the town clerk how they're put out? Because there are some minutes in here that were discussed post the private session. I'm assuming they're not circulated, are they?
Have we lost the town clerk? We have, haven't we?
Town clerk's on mute, for sure.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
So what do you mean?
So in the minutes that came out with this meeting, for the annual finance meeting, the minutes included some elements that were discussed in private session. I'm just questioning whether they were circulated publicly.
No, because that was staffing salaries, so
Yes,
that wouldn't be. So
No.
only the total figure, which was shown.
Understood. That's what I was asking.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I'm fine to move forward the proposal.
In the general meeting.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Martin?
Yeah, I have a query for an amendment on the element that was outside of the public session. So I'm not sure whether we have to hold off approving those until we've discussed that in private session later or not. I just think there's something missing from that resolution that was put forward by myself and approved.
Shall we leave that then and conclude the meeting and then discuss that? Town clerk?
Yeah, that's fine. Although generally, if something.
So Councillor Martin, I'd agree that there is something missing from what you proposed in the private session minutes.
From private session, it is only usually the basic.
I mean, I'm happy to approve everything else in there and leave it be for now.
Yes.
Back.
We do that and go on to that when we at the end, shall we? So have we got, you're happy to propose, Councillor Martin, that we accept, and do we have a seconder? Councillor Barker, and could we all vote to accept the minutes and just to discuss that's been left out at the end? Thank you. Yes, we're all there. Right, the Mayor's announcements, you'll be very pleased to know they are very short tonight, probably the shortest ever. It's been a very, very quiet month. January, I walked into town today and there are still Christmas decorations, Christmas posters up everywhere. And it seems to me like January's just gone. We've had Christmas, but it seems so long ago. So this month has almost been, I don't know, non-existent almost. As far as I've been out once with the chain in the whole month. And that was on Saturday to give an award to the young man that designed the logo for the neighbourhood plan, a lovely young man. And he was very pleased to get his award. I told him what an important document, what a lot of work the councillors were putting in for this document, and his logo will be on everything that we put out. So he was very pleased. So that was the only time I've been out with the chain. I've had a Sinkport Mayor's a Zoom call, which is really good. And the thing they highlighted, or the speaker highlighted, was, you know, those of us that are Sinkports or limb of Sinkports, we should really be raising that profile and getting visitors in. And I agree, we kind of take it, you know, it's quite, yeah, important that we do that. We are a Sinkport. And I've heard one or two comments about possibly a Sinkport museum being part of us. I think that would be great. Let's see if that develops. I've had all the various meetings, obviously, including Cottage Hospital, and I need to tell you, we should have such confidence. There's a great committee there working behind the scenes for the Cottage Hospital. Dementia Alliance, again, we had a great meeting last week. Dementia Week is the 17th of May to 23rd, so please put that down, write that down. We will need to support and raise the profile and hope people really engage with Dementia Week in May. And then, of course, last week, I had a Zoom service actually, and then a Zoom call with the Mayor of Margate. It was Holocaust Memorial Day last week, and I think it was a very moving service. And it made me realise, yes, we've got difficult times. This is not easy. I would think this lockdown's been the hardest for everyone across the board. But going to that service and all meeting up afterwards, the mayors, it made us realise we can do this. What they had to go through was horrendous, actually horrendous. So yes, despite that, that's more or less been my time this month, really. So a very quiet month. So hopefully February we can start maybe. I would love to be back out encouraging our volunteers and the community groups. So let's hope and be positive. By the end of February, beginning of March, things will improve. So thank you, Mayor's announcements. Item 5, could we move to Policy and Finance Committee, which is Councillor Barker?
Sure, just checking I'm not on mute. I'm not.
No.
It's a fairly busy meeting this month, and it was just a week ago, so it's been tabled. I hope all the members have a copy of the minutes. There's quite a lot to go through. There are elements that I will just touch on. Several recommendations for the council to discuss and approve, which we'll take in turn. I guess on matters of finance, the two elements that were kind of usual that we talk through are kind of month-end financial reports, and then from time to time the audits. And the month-end financial report highlighted that there was a £5,000 difference between a trial balance and a detail balance, which we're waiting on some input from Realtis, who own the accounting package we've got, just to check where that's. And I don't think there's any update yet, but we expect that update at the next meeting. The half-yearly audit report outlined a couple of kind of corrective actions to take, which we've mostly undertaken, but no serious risks outlined. There was some further action we're going to take as a committee to investigate where we put the large sort of pot of general reserves we've got, because it extends beyond the £85,000 covered by financial services protection should a bank fail. So we're just looking into options around that, which is worth noting. Beyond that, we again talked to the Faversham District Community Lottery and the launch for that, and noted the successes that's having in take-up, which is very positive. And then we come to a couple of the several recommendations we've got to go through, but firstly the community grants. So the committee, Policy and Finance Committee, resolved to recommend to the full town council that a grant application of £5,000 for the Abbey Physic Garden be made. It's worth noting that there was a proviso, as some of the money was to be spent on a future event, the Hampton Court Garden show, and it to be later used in Faversham after the show is dismantled, that we would pay the money in full to the Abbey Physic Garden, and they would refund the difference should the show not go ahead. We've since had an update in communications from the Physic Garden, who've suggested that I think it's an or in the event that the Hampton Court show doesn't go ahead, that they would then spend it on completing works they'd started on an area of the Physic Garden called the Moon Garden. That assumption is worth just checking with the town clerk that she reads it as I do.
Yes, I do. That's how I read it. Yeah,
it is. Yeah.
So I guess we need to vote on each of that, and then we'll come to the autumn festival in a second as a recommendation. I guess we need to vote as a council on that recommendation to support the grant to the Abbey Physic Community Garden.
Mhm. Thank you.
All those for?
Yes,
I think
we're
it's
all for
unanimous.
unanimous vote.
Madam
And then-
Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes. Councillor
Oh,
Jack.
because I can't raise a hand. My camera's not working, so I'll have to do it verbally. And you didn't hear me because I hadn't actually said it. So, but yes, I do agree.
You do agree. Thank you, Councillor
Thank you, Councillor
Jackson.
Jackson. Yeah,
Just call out when you need to. Thank you.
Councillor Jackson, if you hit the reactions button at the bottom of your screen, you should be able to click a raise hand button.
Ah, right.
Raises a virtual hand.
right. I'll move on
Yes,
to
I
the
found
second.
it.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson.
Thank
Um,
you.
The second recommendation on grants was for an application from the Autumn Festival. It's a community festival proposed, I believe, in November around the arts. There's a lot of positive discussion around this, not least of which that there are so many events we have cancelled and are continuing to cancel, noting that the Hop Festival has been cancelled in the last week alone for this year, and that it would be really positive to support an event, hopefully when most of the country has been able to have a vaccination. So the event was unanimously supported for recommendation in the Policy and Finance Committee for November, and it's noted that in communication with the organisers of the Autumn Festival that they would only draw down the money once the event would definitely go ahead.
Yeah.
So the recommendation is that full council accepts and approves the grant to the Autumn Festival. Can I see everyone in favour? And that's Carol, sorry, Councillor Jackson as well. So that's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
We've got several others to go through. I'm sorry, but we'll
all right.
move through these relatively quickly now. The Swale Area Committee, we had a conversation around the Swale Area Committee and actually the proposal around the local cycling walking infrastructure plan. But I note now that there is a motion on this in the wider agenda, so we'll leave that element to the wider discussion later on in the agenda. There was a proposal again, fully endorsed by the Policy and Finance Group, that the Town Council uses Councillor Hook's budget as a county councillor to support the hiring of a researcher and investigating local crime, and more importantly, considerations around how to prevent it. I'm not sure if Councillor Hook wants to add any kind of context or detail to that.
No, I won't add very much, Chris, because you've summarised it very well. So every county councillor gets, as you know, a members grant, as the Swale Borough councillors do. And I've made an application. The system is you have to make an application, then has to get signed off by a cabinet member. And one of the applications I've made just before Christmas is to draw down about £9,000 to use to do some research into what's driving crime and what can we do to prevent it and detect it. And because the obvious answer always with crime is let's have more police, and that would do a lot, but we don't control the Home Office, unfortunately, here on Faversham Town Council. So I want to see some thinking outside the box as to what could be done and to really understand the problem. So hopefully we'll get that come through. And I want to do it through the Town Council, with the Town Council. It won't cost the council anything, but with a representative body of every corner of Faversham. And I think that already adds some value to the project.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Hook.
Thanks.
So no need to vote on that. It was just worth noting, really, and I think it's a very valid thing for the council to see the output of. And lastly, we had a discussion which I think we need to cover in a vote here around the full town council debating and providing an open and transparent response to the local plan consultation, which I think begins formally on Wednesday and ends, I believe, on the 23rd of March. Ultimately, it was recommended by the Policy and Finance that we hold a special meeting as a town council around the local plan and a consultation response, given that the local plan is recommending an additional 5,200 odd homes, of which 2,000 odd are broadly already within the scope of the Bearing Fruits plan. So that's an additional 3,500 homes for Faversham, which is incredibly significant. But by and large, my first readings of the local plan are it's a very positive document and it's constructed well. But I think it'd be useful for the town as a whole to agree what the consultation response is. So the town clerk was asked to seek guidance from the monitoring officer to ensure that the borough councillors weren't conflicted in their engagement in that process, which they're not. And so the recommendation is that we hold, I think in the first or second Monday, maybe the second Monday of March, to hold a special meeting of the town council to discuss just solely the local plan. I think we need to approve that to actually hold the meeting, and therefore ask you all to either discuss it or vote in favour. I don't know if there's any thoughts or comments. Councillor Hook.
Councillor Hook.
Thanks. I thought really, is it worth inviting Swell to send one of their officers as a professional to, because I think the purpose of the meetings, I've understood the proposals to kind of shed light and gain clarity and then enable us to kind of express our views in a way that's well informed. And I just wondered whether, as well as having councillors, I know we'll really appreciate that all Ben, Eddie, Chris, Julie and Carol as Swell councillors engage with the town council, or they're members of the town council, but I'm sure if they wouldn't, they would engage with it. But I wonder, because of the complexity, is it worth inviting Swell, if they want to send a professional someone who works on this full time as well? I just put that out there as a question.
Councillor Saunders.
I think that's a very good idea. I mean, at the worst, they say no. I think it would be helpful.
Very helpful. So we will do that. Thank you, Councillor Hook. We all agreed we would do that? Yes, we'll all agree to ask Swale if they would kindly send a representative. Thank you. Councillor Barker, back to you. Is that the final?
That's the final item on the agenda discussed in the plenary this month. I don't know if we need to formally agree to have the meeting or hold the meeting. I think we may well have done by virtue of agreeing to invite an officer from Swale Council. So.
That's lovely. Thank you very much, Councillor Barker. That's a lot of work there. Well done. Thank you. Item 6, climate and biodiversity. I think Councillor Williams. Are you? Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to go through a few points before we approve these minutes. There's no recommendations from the meeting only held a week ago, so it's tabled, the minutes. Essentially, we covered a lot of the projects or actions that we've been following for the last year or so. A couple of updates we received. One was in relation to an idea that the town council were pursuing about a car share scheme, which we then realised isn't quite appropriate for the town council, but is being looked at Swale for Faversham, which is very positive. We also received an update regarding the 3 bus shelters that we're looking at to have redone in terms of having them with green roofs on, so planted roofs basically. These have been surveyed and the process is going through, but we have been updated that there is going to be a considerable wait from what was probably about sort of 8 to 12 weeks to about 40 weeks potentially to have them installed because of problems with Brexit. We reviewed the annual action plan and broadly kept it the same. We added a few things to account for some of the things we're debating at the moment, including the LC whip and other infrastructural projects so it's relevant to the active transport part of the action plan. With regards to community gardening, we obviously are a bit of a stumbling block because we can't do a lot in the community at the moment. But what we are doing is gaining momentum in terms of interest with residents. But one of the big developments is that we are working quite heavily with Kent Wildlife Trust. They're assisting very much so in the neighbourhood plan process and the natural environment. But on the sort of back of that, they've got an Action for Insects campaign where they're wanting to use Faversham as a bit of a pilot town, working on the back of the good work that's been done already, and the fact that we're already trying to become a pesticide-free town. So that's a really positive sort of step forward. And through communication such as the newsletter and other ways, we'll be looking at sort of other publications and other ways that we can get the messaging out about how we can improve biodiversity in people's gardens. Also in relation to that, we looked at potentially doing a seed giveaway in the spring, looking at the possibilities under COVID regulations, a bit similar to what we did with the tree giveaway, to try and obviously fit in with the seasonality. So that's something we're looking at. A couple of other things. We're now looking at tree planting locations for next winter, so 2021-22, as we coming out of this season, and we're engaging with Kent County Council Highways officers in terms of what budget they have available for tree planting with Faversham. We're starting to develop lists for those, and I think that establishment of the communication is really important because we can steer some of that funding hopefully to Faversham through this committee. A couple of other points really. We're keen to do more with the youth. This is where we kind of work across into the youth working group. Very keen to see trying to engage with young people that have got big interest in climate change and how we can get them to engage with what we're doing as a council, but also how they can integrate with some of the community groups in the town, and potentially leading on to voluntary work with those. Clearly at the moment we're sort of gathering information, gathering ideas and surveying young people to see what they want, and then hopefully in the summer or as we get out of the pandemic we can do more out in the community. I've already mentioned about pesticide-free towns. We're progressing very well with that in terms of looking at eradicating pesticides in the town, but working with colleagues at Swellborough Council. Unfortunately, Kent County Council have been less than supportive, but we're trying other avenues with contacting different cabinet members in regards to that, and so hopefully we'll get somewhere with that. Really, other than that, that was basically. I won't keep going because I can talk for hours, but I'd just like to propose.
Thank you very much, Councillor Williams. Thank you for all your hard work and your committee. Are there any comments, Councillor Barker?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just noted, I think it was on the 9th of January, the government made the unusual decision to accept a request by the NFU to start using a pesticide that was banned in the EU just 2 years ago, thought to be incredibly detrimental to bees amongst other insects. And I know this is local government and this isn't national government, but clearly, as we've declared a climate and biodiversity emergency, I'm just disturbed by how swiftly we're abandoning perceived wisdom of the EU, and the context of Faversham is an incredibly beautiful, diverse rural setting. Now I know the pesticide in question is particularly used on sugar beet crops that are meant to harbour a fungus at the moment, but the impact on on the local kind of insect population, you know, should there be any in the local vicinity, could be quite dramatic. Is there any, is this a good time in the agenda to talk about, in response to the minutes from Climate and Biodiversity, about the council writing a letter to our MP asking whether she expects, you know, local farmers to not use those pesticides, or could urge local farmers not to use those pesticides?
Councillor Williams. Good idea.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Barker. I think that's a really good thing to bring up actually at this moment, because it's very relevant to what we're doing as a town council. You know, although clearly we are a town within the world, and obviously the impacts of what the government does has greater consequences than just Faversham. But with becoming a pesticide-free town, this is a sort of a UK-wide initiative that's supported by many organisations. And actually, it's not just about what the councils spray or what people spray in their gardens. It's about what agriculture has what impacts agriculture has on the town as well. And I think writing to, or at least showing that we are lobbying our Member of Parliament in terms of our feelings on this, because it is a feeling that we're kind of going backwards if we, you know, in terms of starting to allow these sort of chemicals to be used in agriculture that has an effect on pollinators. Clearly we should be going the other way. So I'm quite happy to support if we can do that as a proposal within this context. I'm quite happy to support.
Councillor Hook.
Were you finished, Councillor Williams?
I think, yes.
I fully support this proposal.
I agree.
And in actual fact, on the 19th, I think it was, of January, the KCC, Environment and Transport Cabinet Committee, which the way KCC is structured is the committees have no decision-making power, they just give advice. And that committee, which I'm on, voted to advise the cabinet member to write a letter to DEFRA to say this is a really daft idea and it's completely at odds with our policy of wanting to protect bee populations, although it was a split vote and some county councillors, including the member for Swale East, was opposed to the proposal. But I think if this town council, which although we don't have many farms in our town, we have many farms nearby, and the bee population, the pollinators, are especially important for the orchards and the fruit growing. So I think it would be a very sensible proposal that we should write expressing our concern about the use of these pesticides to our local MP, and also we could write to DEFRA ourselves just to go directly to the source. But something else that occurred to me while colleagues were speaking, this has come about after a request from the National Farmers Union, and they do have a Kent branch. I don't admit I don't have a strong connection or knowledge of them, but actually, as farming is relevant to the outside of Faversham, it would do no harm if we did. So I wonder if it's worth us writing a letter to Kent NFU to say that we're concerned about this. I think the use of it is primarily in East Anglia, and I don't think there's any proposed to actually take place in Kent. But perhaps we could write, just ask them if they know about the issue, we're concerned about it, do they share our concerns, do they have any views about how the national organisation that they're a branch of would have come to be pushing for this.
I think quite agree. Any other comments? Anyone else like to comment on that? Or are we all happy that that's what we do? Yes. We'll vote to send and write. Happy with that? Yeah.
May I just come in at this point, if you can hear me?
Yes, we can.
The item isn't actually on the agenda, so the proposal.
Oh, gone again. No? We're going to get every other word, Town Clerk. I think you're coming and going. So it isn't on the agenda.
Are you No, but I believe it forms part of the pesticide-free action plan, which has already been agreed.
Yes, Right. So that's
I
fine.
will write it.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Yes, no, you're right. So thank you, Councillor Williams. Thank you for all your hard work. And we can go on to item 7, which is public spaces.
Madam Mayor, point of order.
Yes, sorry.
We do need to vote to accept those minutes, and I don't think the town clerk was in the call when we were
Right.
voting on the policy and finance one, so we'll need to do that as well, just to make sure the town clerk's got a
Okay.
full record.
Is she in now? Are you in, town clerk? We're not doing very well, are we? In and out, I think.
I am here, yes, at the moment.
Right, can
I
we?
am
Sorry.
here.
It's
No.
just been pointed out that we didn't vote to accept policy and finance. So have we got a proposer to accept policy and finance? Councillor Barker and Councillor Martin. And can we all vote? And I think Councillor Jackson is somewhere there. Can't see you, Councillor Jackson. Thank you. And then we need to have a proposer and seconder for climate and biodiversity. And we have a proposer, Councillor Williams, seconder, Councillor Perking. Can we all vote? Right, I think that's unanimous. Hopefully you can see Councillor Jackson as well, town clerk. So we now can move to item 7, public spaces. Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Again, the minutes pretty much speak for themselves. I guess the only thing I particularly want to highlight is that the drinking fountain on the rear of the public toilets in the central car park, the Borough Council, as part of their town centre improvements, is looking to replace that with a bottle filling station linked with a water fountain, because currently the existing one is not very user friendly to people who are having drinking bottles. The other thing I wanted to note is that the committee are looking into suitable planters, and at our next meeting we'll be reviewing the information again, because we requested extra information before we made a final decision on which planters were going to be appropriate. But other than that, I would. Is there anyone who's got any questions before I on the minutes? Okay, in that case, I'm going to propose that we accept the minutes of the Public Spaces Committee.
Thank you. And Councillor Martin.
I was going to say I'd second them, but I know Councillor Barker raised an indication.
Was it Councillor Barker? Thank you, seconder. And can we all vote? And I think you've got Councillor Jackson as well, hopefully. I can't see her tonight.
Councillor Jackson and Councillor Ben Martin as well.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Thomas, for all your hard work and your committee. And item 8, Faversham Neighbourhood Plan. I think Councillor Irwin is going to talk to us.
Yes, thank you. So no recommendations came out of the meeting 21st, but there's just a couple of points I'd like to highlight. And one thing I would actually like to get the council's agreement on, if that's okay. So one of the issues that we discussed was the issue of project management. We're at a really quite important stage of the plan. We have obviously got feedback from the exhibitions. We have feedback from a resident survey. There's 2 surveys currently out for businesses and young people. So we are at a stage where we will have sufficient material to progress to the next stage of actually writing the neighbourhood plan. We've been using a group called Urban Vision, who I think you're all aware of, to support us up to this point. And the support they've been giving us to date has been essentially ad hoc support. So we use them occasionally when we have questions. They help point us in the right direction. And we've had a very successful working relationship with them. What we'd like to do between now and the end of this financial year is set up a new contract with them. We got an estimate for that contract today, so it's for £11,025 plus VAT. Really just to take us to the next stage of the plan itself, which will mean writing the plan. Just a couple of points of note on that. We had a £20,000 budget allocated from the council. We got just under 5,000 funding from locality. So essentially we have sufficient funds in the budget to cover this work, but I just really wanted to get agreement this evening that everyone is comfortable with us as a group signing that contract and proceeding for the next stage of the neighbourhood plan. So although it wasn't a formal recommendation, can I propose that we vote to enable the steering group to make that spend on behalf of the council?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I think that's unanimous. So thanks for that. Just a couple of other points of note. We've already discussed the local plan. Obviously, the neighbourhood plan steering group are currently reviewing the local plan and very much look forward to the meeting we have to discuss it. And I do agree with Councillor Barker. It's largely a very positive plan. We're largely supportive of it, but I suspect, with anything of its size and scope, we'll probably have a couple of points we'd like to raise, but we'll hold that for the time being. Two other things. We had a call for sites. It closed on Sunday, 31st of January. We've had over 20 sites come forward in that call for sites. Of those approximately 20, approximately half have come directly from land owners or land promoters, and the other half have come from nominations from the community. So the next stage is we are working with a company called ACOM, who are provided to us by locality at no cost to the council, and they will actually be conducting the site appraisal prior to us at a later stage determining the site selection criteria, which we'll put out for consultation at that point. So very good response. I think of those 20 sites, around 3 or 4 of them are mixed use sites, and the vast majority of the sites have essentially come forward as suggestions for housing. So as soon as we have got that list confirmed, so the list was with ACOM, they just have to check the red lines, make sure they appropriately identify the properties. We'll put those on the website. But obviously they're simply nominations. It won't reflect any indication that the sites will proceed, but for transparency, we'll publish those as well. Very last point, as the Mayor mentioned, we now have a logo for the neighbourhood plan, which we're very pleased with. Particularly pleasing because one of our young people has designed it for us. So I think that's really important, and it's good to see young people engaged, especially at such a difficult time for them. So the Mayor, he received recognition from the Mayor, and so thank you for doing that. Much appreciated. So if there are no questions, I'd like to propose that we accept the minutes of the steering group neighbourhood plan.
I second that. Thank you. I second. Can we all vote on that? I think that's unanimous. Thank you, Councillor Irwin. I know there is a huge amount of work being done on this plan, absolutely huge. I think you and Councillor Barker, I just sit at some of the meetings and am absolutely overwhelmed by what you're doing. And for me, I know 20 years down the line, Faversham's going to look quite different. I won't be around to see it, but what I am seeing is how you're planning it. And that's absolutely great. Absolutely great. Thank you.
Just to say one thing, actually, which
Yes.
is really important. It's been really, everyone that has contributed to it, it's been really important, and especially people in the town have really engaged with it.
They have.
I know we didn't want to mention it tonight, but we will be providing feedback at a later date on the feedback on the neighbourhood plan. So, you know, for the small number watching, but, you know, I'd like to thank everyone in the community for participating.
Thank you. Well done. Well done. Item 9 is the local cycling and walking infrastructure plan. Councillor Saunders.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before I move on to this, can I just raise a point of order in relation to the various sets of minutes? I just wanted I wondered if the town clerk could confirm that the youth subgroup minutes come to the town council and that we will get to review them at the next meeting.
Yeah, we've got a meeting this week, haven't we?
Yes, that's correct, Councillor Saunders. They'll be at the next
Meeting.
meeting agenda.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, shall I talk to the motion?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay, so this motion is proposing that the town council agree to develop a local cycling and walking infrastructure plan, an LC WIP. An LC WIP is really a detailed set of proposals for physical interventions which improve the environment for cycling and walking, and it could be used by particularly the borough to attract Section 106 contributions from developers, and it could also be the basis of applying for funding from bodies like Swale, KCC and other organisations. It would normally run for 10 years and it has to be developed using national guidelines. There's a lot of emphasis on gathering data and on designing physical improvements. I think the reason that we need an LC WIP for Faversham, we've been touching on during the meeting. We're expecting there to be very significant house building around the town in the next few years, and the draft Swale local plan suggests that in transport terms, in order for the town to cope for it, there's got to be a very significant shift towards more active travel to walking and cycling. In our own neighbourhood plan, my understanding is that there's a lot of interest in promoting Faversham as a cycling and walking town, and obviously we've got the 20-mile-an-hour scheme, and we're hoping to have a whole number of physical improvements to the scheme in the future. So the proposal is that we agree in principle to develop a plan. I'm suggesting that the plan needs to be developed in close partnership with Swale, and that a next stage is actually to discuss with Swale where ownership of the plan should sit, because there are some issues for us around in relation to our relationships with neighbouring parish councils. And although I think it would be attractive to manage it ourselves, there could be reasons that it's sensible for Swale to nominally be managing it. In the motion, I propose that we should discuss the funding of the plan. I'm pleased to tell you that the Swale informal cabinet actually approved a special projects fund application this morning. So we do have the funding for the plan. The proposal is that development work on the plan should be organised through a subgroup of the 20s Plenty Committee, and through informal discussions I've had with other people on the council, I think I'm hoping there's general support for that. And we do almost have a shadow subgroup in place already, which Councillor Thomas and Councillor Barker, as well as me, have been involved in, plus a couple of members from the Faversham Future Forum, a planning officer from Swale, and Councillor Gould, who's the Deputy Planning Cabinet member at Swale. And the third recommendation or proposal is that the subgroup needs to obviously work very closely with the neighbourhood plan steering group. So I'd like to propose the motion.
Thank you. And Councillor Thomas?
I'd like to second the motion, and also say that yes, it was a very pleasing morning this morning when the request for funding from Councillor Saunders, myself and Councillor Gould was agreed at an informal cabinet this morning. I think this is going to be a really useful plan that will help attract funding, and as Councillor Saunders said, not just from local government but also central government. They keep pushing the point that they want more walking and cycling. So by having this, it is much easier to attract funding because people know where it's going. And similar to the 20s Plenty scheme, we had drawings already drawn up, and then when funding became available, it was much easier to attract the funding. So yes, I commend this to the council. Thank you.
Thank you. So that was seconded. Do we all just vote on that?
Could I have a few words, Madam Mayor?
Sorry, who was that? Councillor Barker.
So firstly, I mean, I thoroughly endorse this too for all the reasons you said, and again, it fits with our kind of, you know, our green leaning on the Climate and Biodiversity Committee and the climate emergency. The integration to look with other parishes, I think, is a really good thing and a good outcome for it too. Just to note, Councillor Saunders, we had a brief discussion with Urban Vision about their credentials to be able to support some of the consultation on it as well if we need to tender with other people. So there's another route we can take. But yeah, I think yeah, it's a good thing for us to undertake.
Great, thank you. Councillor Hook.
I fully support it, Mayor. I think it's absolutely terrific, and it's great that the Yale Borough Council are going to put the investment in to make this plan, which is really good. And I'll be honest, I've been on this town council 4 years, and Swell Council that we were dealing with 4 years ago, I don't think they would have done. So it's really good. I've got a small suggestion on the overall governance. I think it's such a big project like this, we definitely need to report it back to the full council. And I wonder whether we should authorise the 20s Plenty committee to take it forward, and that committee can decide for itself whether it wants to then delegate it further to a subordinate group from that committee or to do something else. I don't think we as a council need to mandate that. And it might also be, remember in May, every May when the civic year starts, we review our committee structures, and we've made changes to them the last 2 Mays. So we'll see what we decide to do this May, because bear in mind, by May, the 20 mile an hour project in Faversham may well have moved on substantially in that we'll probably not by the May when we at the very start of the civic year, but not long after that, the cabinet member at KCC may sign off our speed limit as being a permanent thing or not, as the case may be. So that will be very important possibly to how we structure it. And we might want to have a committee called something like the 20 mile an hour and active transport committee, because this is broadening out now into new topics. We've always been very clear that the 20s Plenty committee for several years has had a laser-like focus on getting that speed limit changed. And there was often a temptation to branch out and do different things. And I think it was essential. I can remember Mike Henderson saying this very clearly, and he was absolutely right. We've got to keep that laser-like focus, otherwise it won't get achieved. So it may well be now that 2021 is the year to broaden it out to something else, to active transport more generally. And if so, a change of name, I think, would be appropriate. But we can decide that in May when we review our committees at the start of the civic year. I just make a comment and a suggestion for people to think about for now.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I'll just quickly. I just wanted to say I support this motion, but you know, from a sort of environmental point of view, I mean, obviously, it's active transport is something that is within the climate emergency declaration, and it's an important part. So I mean, anything we can do to obviously further that is really important. And clearly, with the with the focus around the pandemic, around sort of a social change in how we travel. I mean, less people having to commute and perhaps use cars as regularly, people deciding that actually cycling, walking as opportunities to. And I think in order to, we're at a sort of critical moment where we've got a lot of developments going to happen inevitably within the town, and if these sorts of things are thought about now, then the connectivity will hopefully be in place in the future, rather than do it the other way around, which perhaps would have happened in the past. So I really, that's all my comments, but just to say that I'm in support of.
Totally support. Thank you. So do we need to vote on that, or basically are we sending it back to the relevant committee to make decisions? Is that how I understand? Councillor Perkin?
Sorry, can I just raise a question? With the, I fully support the proposal. I think it's a really positive proposal. Yeah. With the forward motion of it and who looks after it and stuff, that we are meeting this week to start looking at starting meetings of the Disability Forum, and it would be helpful in lots of ways to look at accessibility for the disabled as well as cycling and walking as part of that plan, and it would be maybe a great opportunity for the members of that forum to look at it later down the line, just to have some say in it. Is that possible, Councillor Saunders?
Make it inclusive, yes, Councillor Saunders.
Yeah, I think the process of developing the plan involves consultation, so I'm sure it is possible. My reading of the discussion, Madam Mayor, was that the proposal was to vote on this here, but I think Councillor Hook suggested that I think he suggested really a very small amendment, which would be in the point 2 after the main bit of the motion, that the plan is organised through the 20s Plenty Committee rather than through a subgroup of the 20s Plenty Committee. Is that right?
Yeah, that's how I agreed. Are we all agreed on that? Yes.
If people want that, I'm happy to accept that amendment, and then we'll discuss the detail of it at the 20s Plenty Committee.
Thank you. So can we vote and agree on that? Yes, I think all in agreement with that. I'm sure Councillor Jackson's there. So, yes. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Saunders, again for you and your committee all working really hard. That's very good. Item 10, Municipal Charities. To agree that Mr. Tom Gates be reappointed as a trustee, the Municipal Charities of Faversham CIO, with effect from 31st of December 2020 for 4 years. Mr. Gates has proposed to offer his CIO place after 1 year on the date that his FMC 2010 place is due to end on the 31st of December 2021. This has arisen due to an error by the charity when registering the trustees' terms of office with the Charity Commission. Mr. Gates' term of office with FMC is due to end on 31st of December 2021. And unfortunately, the CRO date has been registered as December 2020. Both dates should be the same as FMC. The term of office needs to be for 4 years rather than 1 year. The clerk had originally advised to bring it into line with the Charity Commission scheme, but Mr. Gates has proposed to offer his CIO place after 1 year on the date that his FMC 2010 place is due to end on December 31st, 2021. So do we need to agree that? Councillor Barker.
I'd like a bit of clarity, if I can, from the town clerk on the relationship between the town council and Faversham Municipal Charities, and that really I shouldn't have to do that, because I now sit on the Faversham Municipal Charities, and I went to their AGM recently. But the relationship between the town council and Faversham Municipal Charities is still a little opaque to me, and I'm not clear how many of the trustees are to be appointed by the town council and how many are co-opted by the municipal charities.
In me right now, but I'll speak quickly.
Unfortunately, I don't think speaking quickly.
I did send that information over. Everybody can hear me.
Oh, I didn't see that. No.
I didn't see any information on how many we're supposed to support or.
Oh. Yeah, no, I didn't see that.
The information that.
Carry on. Sorry.
Did read by themselves. So.
No, we're not going to get it, are we? It's coming and going.
That detail, but I will read.
Yeah, I think we're not going to get that fully tonight. It's some and not. So perhaps we could just have that sent to us maybe tomorrow to everyone. I didn't get that. So yes, so we.
But just to be clear, I mean, I because it isn't clear to me, I don't know whether we should be appointing or considering appointing others and be looking for people to appoint, or whether we just accept what the current trustee board wants for Faversham Municipal Charities. I'm just minded there's some really interesting conversations, you know, that I've had recently about the nature of the Faversham Municipal Charities and the almshouses, and how it serves the community and the poor. That's what it was all set up for, right? It was all set up so Faversham had a place to house its poor. And it feels to me they've done a spectacular job over the years, and they have opened the chapel up and whatever else. But times have changed, and you know, and it is looking to change. It's looking to change the nature of the houses and accommodation that it supports. But interestingly, I think, you know, poverty is changing, and the people that are poor that are housed in the almshouses is, you know, maybe needs to change. I'm just conscious that we are, you know, on the brink of a potentially devastating confluence of both COVID economic downturn and Brexit economic downturn. And that, you know, the one thing that Faversham has to mitigate against that are the almshouses. And I'm also conscious that if the town council has seats to award, it should genuinely take the responsibility seriously in thinking about that, and not just accept what's gone on before. And it may be that what's gone on before is exactly the right thing to do because they're exactly the right people. But if we have a responsibility to review and understand what that board should do and deliver, then we ought to discharge it seriously.
Councillor Martin.
Sorry, could I ask you to call Councillor Saunders first? And then
Councillor Saunders, yeah, I've got you there.
Okay, thank you. I mean, there's three proposals here. I think 10.2, I'm fully supportive of, that Councillor Chris Barker be appointed as a trustee, and I hope we're all going to support that. In relation to 10.3, you know, I think, you know, Mr. Abrams is a thoroughly kind of committed, decent member of the community, has done a lot of fantastic work for the town. But I don't think all, I think we have a responsibility really to the people of the town. We were elected probably by, well over 50% of the electorate, and at the moment this charity, almost all the members of the board are from a party that has no representation on the town council. So I don't think we should be shy about saying that we want to have a change in representation. In fact, when you read what's in 10.3, it reads to me that we don't, whatever we say, we can't automatically appoint someone. It seems to be saying, according to the Charity Commission trust deed, it's not necessary for the appointed representative to be a member of the appointing body. Does that mean, I'm not kind of quite clear what that means. So I'm not sure we should support the reappointment of Trevor Abram. I think we should probably argue or suggest that there should be a replacement. In relation to 10.1, I don't really understand if Mr. Gates can stand down after a year, why we would agree to him being reappointed for 4 years. Surely we should, if we're happy for him to carry on for a year because there's been an error, we should just agree to him being reappointed for a year. Thank you.
To the end of the year. Thank you, Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I'll address them in order if I may.
Yeah.
10.1, I concur with what Councillor Saunders said. If it's an error, then we should. I think we should actually propose it for 1 year. Although I do believe the town clerk has said that according to their nominations, it should be for a period that the minimum term is 4 years. In which case, I believe on 10.1 we would need to appoint somebody else, and then when the 4 years comes up for Mr. Gates next year, we'd have to consider whether the CIO date and the charities date need to be the same. There's nothing that indicates that, and it seems to be two separate organisations. As far as 10.3 is concerned, I do agree. I think it is. The Charity Commission Deed Trust says it is not necessary for the appointed representative to be a member of the appointing body, i.e. it does not have, as we are the appointing body to town council, the person we appoint does not have to be a town councillor.
No.
That's what that means.
Right.
And I ask anyone to correct me if I'm wrong. And as for 10.2, I'm quite willing to support that. Councillor Barker is indicating.
I've just found the advice from the town clerk, which I'll read for everyone here who couldn't find it, which is on the 16th of December, circulated on the 16th of December. In effect, for whatever reason and from history, but it's what we do, is the town council should appoint 5 of the 15 roles. And yeah, I mean, it just feels to me we should do, we should take that responsibility seriously. And I'm slightly nervous of these just coming to the town council and just reappointing people who in the past have been good eggs. And I think it doesn't have to come from amongst our number, as it says, and that we should potentially canvass for other people, in and around the town that may wish to serve, a really good cause.
Thank you. Right, Councillor Irwin.
So there's also been a note from the town clerk regarding the duration of appointments, and it seems to be quite clear. And I suppose this is a point that Councillor Saunders made, is that we can't appoint for 1 year. So the only thing we can do is appoint for another 4 years, in which case there'll still be this problem that one ends next year and then the other one ends in 4 years. So there's two ways of doing it. You either extend by a year, or Mr. Gates leaves his post a year early. It looks to me like they're the two potential options, given that we can't extend the post for 1 year. But I'd be interested in other views on that.
Councillor Hook.
I think the point's well made. I mean, the first thing I wanted to say is I know Trevor Abrahams, and I think he's an outstanding man, and he's chair of the West Faversham Community Centre, and he's done brilliantly leading that organisation for several years. And I can readily understand why any charity that's got him on its committee would want him reappointed. Stepping back and looking at the wider picture of appointments that this council makes, I think Councillor Barker is very correct and makes a very important point. We mustn't do that on the nod and just wave things through, and we perhaps even need to think about having a schedule, because these things come along, and I think we're not necessarily cited that it's coming in 2 months or 3 months time. And if we were to think about other people and have conversations with others, you can't just do it the day before, ring someone up and ask them to think about doing it. So it'd be great if at some stage perhaps the clerk or one of the staff team could draw up a schedule of appointments that we might make a year, 2 years from now, as far as is reasonable to go forward. And sometimes it might be appropriate even to advertise it in the town council newsletter to say this is coming up. Is anyone interested to come and talk to us? And sometimes it may not be appropriate to publicise it that widely, but I definitely think we should, on a point of principle, be seen to be an inclusive, open council that's welcoming new people all the time to take on roles in the community.
Thank you. I mean, Councillor Barker, I don't know, I've only been to one meeting and I was quite shocked, because I'm sure many of those at that meeting hadn't only been on for 4 years. They must have been re-elected. I'm sure there are a good number that have been on that committee many years, not just the 4.
Yeah, I sort of agree. And I don't, what I'm not doing here is saying that any of them aren't good people or worthy people.
No, exactly.
Have a sense of civic duty. Half of them in one form or another have been mayor of the town.
Yeah,
I think their credentials are outstanding, and their desire to do well for the town is outstanding too. I guess the question I'm asking, which was in part echoed by most of the people here, including Councillor Saunders, is that if we have a responsibility for these types of institutions to ensure they are populated by people who want to serve the community, then just to wave them through feels like it's us paying lip service to what we should do. And I think we should probably do more than that.
Thank you. So, are we there? Are there any other comments that anyone would like to make? So on 10.1, are we saying we will? No, Councillor Saunders.
Rereading this, I found it slightly bizarre that, having made a clerical error, the charity can't go back to the Charity Commission and correct its error. I mean, I would propose that we don't agree this, but we ask in the first place that the charity goes back and corrects its error, so that Mr. Gates can stand down on the 31st of December 2021.
Yes. That's a proposal to do that. Would anyone second? Councillor Irwin?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Thank you. Can we vote on that? I think we should. Thank you. 10.2 is obviously Councillor Barker, with effect from the 13th Jan 2021 for 4 years. So we need to add and include you on the CIO. So Councillor Martin.
I propose that we agree 10.2.
Yes. Do we have a second? I would second that. Can we all vote on that? Unanimous there. Thank you. And 10.3. Do we have a proposer, or so we do the same? Councillor Saunders, did you think?
Councillor Saunders is muted at the moment. We can't hear him.
I would propose that we agree that we would like to replace Trevor Abrams. I mean, I don't think we're in a position to, from the discussion, to actually propose anyone as an alternative, are we? Unless anyone's going to do that. But that we, yeah, so that we just propose that he's replaced.
I think the proposal has to be that the town council would seek to appoint somebody outside, somebody else. We need to work out how we fill that role.
Councillor Martin?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think what we would need to do then is to propose that for 10.3 that we inform the charity that we will be nominating someone else for those positions.
Yes.
And that we will advise them of that following our March meeting.
Yes.
As the term doesn't end until the 13th of April, that would give us time to point, and perhaps councillors will consider whether they wish to or whom they wish to ask to do it. And it may be that councillors decide that Mr. Abrams would be the person they'd want to do, but we would reserve that right to make that decision at our next meeting. Can I propose that then?
Thank you. Councillor Hook, did you want to come in?
I mean, I was going to ask a question which Councillor Martin answered, which was I was going to ask what the timescale was, and the dates in April, I think Councillor Martin said. But just I think Councillor Martin began by saying we should write to them and say we will appoint someone else. But then Councillor Martin quite rightly said, but it may yet be Martin. So I think the right way of putting it is to say that we require some more time before confirming our nomination.
That sounds a better way, I think, to go. Councillor Martin.
Yeah, I agree. Apologies.
Yeah.
I think we should say that we will not confirm that they have asked for, but we will look at it and confirm it after our March meeting. Does that sound
yes.
Or our decision?
Are we all happy with that? Could we vote on that proposal? Thank you. Right, we go on to item 11, dyslexia. Councillor Ben Martin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and my apologies to councillors for the length of this particular motion. I know we normally try and keep them short and sweet into a single page. And for the benefit of the public, I'll try and read some of the motion out as I go through. But to be honest, it is a 2-page motion, so it may be a little trickier than normal. Essentially, this motion is with regard to how we treat dyslexia in society, and in particular how we identify and support children with dyslexia. 80% of dyslexics are not currently identified or diagnosed whilst in school. They are diagnosed when they finished their compulsory education. This has been known to lead to issues with self-esteem. It's known to lead to problems with exams and whatnot, because they're not getting the support that they necessarily need and require. And that's no disrespect to teachers or schools. I'll say it outright. The budgets have never been there for schools. I've spoken to many teachers and special education needs coordinators over the years, and the answer they always get when they say we want to do a dyslexia screening is there isn't the money in the budget, because it's an expensive thing to do, particularly if you go all the way through to the educational psychologist's report that's required for much of the support, and that can be well into the thousands per report. I myself was not diagnosed as a dyslexic until I attended university. And again, that's probably my tuition fees for that year covered the cost of the dyslexia assessment that I had with the psychologist. around 1 in 10 children are dyslexic. It doesn't mean that they're less able at doing things. It means they think differently. And there are many successful dyslexics that do put down their dyslexia as being a main cause of their success. Some of those individuals, the likes of Richard Branson, he admitted not that long ago that he never understood the difference between net and gross profit. And that's one of the most successful businessmen around the globe. And he puts it down to his dyslexia and the ability to look at the bigger picture. So to read some of the motion for those that haven't got it in front of them. So 1 in 10 people are dyslexic. Dyslexia is genetic and it does run in families. 80% of dyslexics are never spotted at school and they never truly understand their full potential as a result, with 4 in 5 successful dyslexics attributing dyslexic thinking skills to their success. Methods to identify and support dyslexia have been known about since the 1930s. The important work undertaken by the Dyslexia Association and of the Made by Dyslexia campaign are something that this council believes is a good thing. Unidentified dyslexia, we know, results in low self-esteem, and 40% of dyslexics said they were aware they couldn't do what their other classmates could do at the age of 5. It really can be spotted that early on at the age of 5. 70% said, sorry, I heard someone coming in.
No, I come in afterwards, Councillor Martin, but it wasn't me.
Nope, no worries. I've lost my chain now. Here we go. 70% said that they couldn't do what their classmates could at 7. And dyslexics often fail tests and exams despite having great knowledge and ability of a subject. 9 in 10 have poor spelling, grammar, punctuation. And if anyone's ever seen my handwriting, they'll vouch for that straight off the bat. And 3 in 4 struggle with things like their times tables. But in general, most dyslexics have a great way of dealing with maths. They just think about the problem in a completely different way. Some examples of of people with dyslexia, what their different strengths may be. So 75% of dyslexics are above average at visualizing and interacting with space, sense and physical ideas and new concepts. 71% of dyslexics are above average at crafting and conveying clear and engaging messages. 84% of dyslexics are above average at creating an original piece of work or giving ideas a new spin. And 84% of dyslexics are above average in reasoning skills, such as understanding patterns, evaluating possibilities, and making decisions. And that can be seen by some of the successful dyslexics that we acknowledge in the UK today, the likes of Sir Richard Branson, the late Steve Jobs, Sir Lewis Hamilton, the most successful F1 driver of all time, and many in the entertainment industry and in science. The crux of this motion is that this council does believe that it's time that we all try to understand dyslexia properly and as a different way of thinking and not necessarily as a disadvantage. But we believe that dyslexic brains are wired slightly differently, meaning that they have a different way of processing information, and that this difference results in a pattern of strengths like critical thinking, creativity and communication skills, as well as challenges affecting traditional learning such as reading, writing, spelling, and memory concentration. Every dyslexic will have a different pattern of strengths and challenges, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, every child is an individual and every individual is obviously an individual. Early identification is a key enabler to success in both education and in preserving self-esteem. If we place as much importance on dyslexic strengths as difficulty, then those with dyslexia really can achieve their full potential. And that's something I believe that we should be trying to do for every child and giving them that opportunity. It's important for parents, teachers and schools to arrange for children to have dyslexia screening as soon as a problem is noticed. I sat down and took part in the Made by Dyslexia. They're running a free training course for teachers, and I thought I'd sit down and do it myself. And actually some of those techniques in there are so simple for teachers to implement, but they've never been given the training to do it. A lot of the time, dyslexia training in schools has been something that's too expensive. And as a result, many teachers weren't given it. and you know, I understand that. I really do understand the pressures on school budgets for some of this training and whatnot. And I appreciate the efforts that teachers do make. And I know a lot of them will do training off their own back, buy materials to learn more themselves. And in many cases, teachers really are the guys that are standing there and going, this isn't right, we need to do something about it. And the key thing is that there's actually now the Dyslexia Pledge, the Made by Dyslexia Pledge, which I hope this council will vote today to sign ourselves, and to encourage the schools in our council area to also sign up to. The Made by Dyslexia campaign have, as I said, made resources for training of teaching staff available free of charge, and it's a 2-hour virtual session, so it's something that can be done during lockdown. There's also access to new free dyslexia screening tools, which I think can help in many schools. And of course, there's free advice now provided by both the Made by Dyslexia campaign and by the British Dyslexia Association. So what am I asking the council to do? I'm asking this council to commit to signing that Made by Dyslexia pledge, to contact every school in the area to encourage them to take up the free training available and to sign the pledge themselves, to encourage them to work towards achieving the British Dyslexia Association Dyslexia Friendly Quality Mark, to share the resources and links that are available for free dyslexia screening tools and to free advice for educators, and to write to not only our local MP, but also the local Director of Education and to the Secretary of State for Education, encouraging them to take on the Made by Dyslexia pledge. And finally, I'm asking this council to engage with the Dyslexia Awareness Week, as we did last year. And I know we now have the facility to make our buildings different colours. And during the Dyslexia Awareness Week this year, which is the 5th of October to the 11th, that we make those buildings green in solidarity with Dyslexia Week. As I say, there are strengths to dyslexia as well as challenges, and it's important that we recognise that. And there are so many individuals that have spent years not really acknowledging whether they have dyslexia or not, or sort of finding ways of hiding it. I was one of them for quite some time, and actually, let's embrace it, because it's the skills of tomorrow, as opposed to the sit down and learn so frustrating for me in the past. And I think, you know, this is an opportunity to give every child in Faversham an opportunity to a better education, and an education that suits them and helps their classmates to achieve their full potential.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. I certainly fully support what you've said, the whole of your document. Councillor Barker.
Yeah, I mean, let's start off by saying I support the vast majority of what Councillor Martin's put forward. My son has dyslexia, and that was recognised by a special education needs coordinator at Davington School, and they went to great lengths at Davington to have him tested and supported for his dyslexia while he was there. So, I mean, my wife, in fact, has dyslexia, and she went to Oxford University and got a 2-1. Yeah. So it's no bar to success in the world. It's just a couple of things. One, I guess, point of clarity, and one point of just to. I feel that the element which says, you know, the council understands and appreciates the efforts made by schools and educators. I mean, I just, yeah, on a personal level, I really like to thank Davington for all the effort they put into my son, and I think that a lot of the local schools do provide care and support for these kind of educational needs. So yeah, it's important that if we do, you know, promote and write letters and speak to schools, that we do so, you know, with a touch of humility too, for the work that they do, which has been great for, you know, on my part. The second part, the council commits to contact every school, Councillor Martin, and the following points. I just slightly confused, and I'm not trying to be obtuse, but I couldn't work out whether we're asking the school to undertake each of the kind of 7 points beneath that, so A to G, or some of we're hoping the schools will do some of them and the council will do some. So as an example, 2F, writing to the local MP, local director of education and secretary of state for education, urging them to take, are we asking the council to write those letters, or are we asking the schools to write those letters? I wasn't quite clear.
As a point of clarity, point F should have been for the council rather than for schools. The other points are for the schools.
Any other comments? So we accept this, and shall we vote on it? Do we vote that we do? Thank you. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Martin.
I'd like to thank the council on this one and just say I believe that this is the first council in the country to commit to signing the Made by Dyslexia pledge. So pat on the back for Faversham Town Council for leading the way yet again.
Well done you for bringing it forward. That's excellent. Really
Yes,
good.
thank you, Ben.
Really
Thank
good
you very much. Right, we move on to item 12, Faversham Town Council Spring newsletter. Is it really spring? Oh, right. Anyone have any comments? Councillor Hook, was that? Yeah.
I got two. Sorry, I'm just getting the newsletter back up. I had two matters. The first one was on the back page. We've got an article about the precept, which is great. I just wanted to make a formatting change and suggest that we. I did you two. I've just spotted another one. So the third line in the first sentence, precept of 504997. I think the second comma is confusing. I know why it's there, which is because Microsoft Word always suggests you have a comma before the word which, but I think the second comma might look like it. I don't know. I think it's unnecessary. So I think that second comma should come out. And the other one, which I think is actually more important, is which is the equivalent of £78 and 5.3p, because there's 3 decimal points. And I know from an accounting point of view, the tax department at Swale Council will probably go to many decimal places, but I think most people just work in pounds and pence up to 2 decimal places. So could we just round that to £78 and 5p? I don't think anyone's going to sort of
agree
about a third of a penny.
Yeah, you're right.
The other comment was more a general comment on the newsletter, which is it's pink and sort of dark red or berry color, which in itself is a very nice color. But my recollection was quite some time ago, last year, I think it must have been, it was a live meeting, so it must have been the year before last. I thought we had discussed, we looked at different maybe seasonal colors, you know, brown in the autumn and blue in the spring or and stuff like that. And I thought we'd settled on a green shade based on the color of the Guildhall.
We did.
Kind of iconic building as being the norm for this. I mean, I think there's a wider thing we might want to think about of having some uniformity between the color scheme of the stationery, which is sometimes grey and dark red, I think, or even dark blue, and the color scheme of the website, which is now black, yellow, and a hot pink, which I think is really nice actually, and the newsletter, which hitherto has been a mint green. So I just wanted to query why this one has sort of gone a berry color, and until such point, I think we should, so I'm being slightly all over the place, but I think the first thing is at some point, I think the council should review our colour scheme and have some uniformity across all our publications. But right now, I thought we were going for Guildhall Green as our newsletter colour.
Thank you. I think the town clerk has a comment to make. If she can come in.
I'll make it easy and read it for the benefit of the
Thank
public.
you.
Madam Mayor. It says Claire has made it in the same colour as the new website as a potential example.
Okay. I like the idea of some uniformity with the website. Actually, it looks different to me to the website. It looks more purpley, whereas the website is black, yellow, and what I would call hot pink, a sort of cerise colour. But I don't know, is it going to descend into a Dulux type discussion?
Councillor Martin.
Thank you. I've just been informed by, and I've just double checked it. It's actually the same colour mix. So if you were to reproduce it, it would be the same. So it's the same RAL, or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is exactly the same. It's just it's sometimes, I think, when you PDF things, it does sort of change your monitor's settings.
It can do. That's right.
And the other thing I would say on it is it does seem to match up with the lottery, which we are promoting quite heavily in this particular.
Yes, we are. Especially from the 23rd of February when tickets go on sale.
I'm really grateful for the explanation, actually. Now I understand it. The intention was to match it with the web. If we're going for match it with the website there, because if you go to the web page now, it's black, white, yellow, pink. And if perhaps we would put some black and yellow with the pink on there, with you know. And actually, I'm not sure if the newsletter's got a thing saying, check out our amazing new website. It has got the web address, but actually I wonder if we should highlight, if Claire would consider the bar on the banner head, it's got the URL. I don't know if that could be highlighted, because the fact we've got an amazing new website is quite good, and people should be encouraged to check it out.
Councillor Barker.
Yeah, just a couple of things. On the website, the version in yellow you can see, I think maybe a version you can see on mobile devices. So it isn't. So I'm looking at the front page on a Safari browser, and it's quite white. Can't see any yellow. But maybe if I go to one of the pages, it probably much of it's white. What I think, and I might be worth exploring this with the town clerk with Zonky, is just whether they're called cascading style sheets, but they effectively describe where things sit and how things look on a web page. But whether there's kind of uniformity across devices and browsers, that'd be just interesting to know. My points on the actual newsletter, though, are a couple. Firstly, the neighbourhood plan page, which I put some time into.
Yeah.
I need to make a minor update to the second of the images there, because I need to show and demonstrate the process around the referendum, and it sort of takes it more or less towards the end of that quarter, which is worth knowing. I did ask for a couple of councillor images to be put on that page as well, so that whilst nobody's getting out and about at the moment, if we do get out and about and people recognise us, they can talk to us basically. So it's recognition, so that people can talk to us or confront us, in fact, if they wanted to, about the neighbourhood plan. So if we could think about adding in those images there that I asked Claire for, that would be helpful. And finally, on the last page, and the schedule of virtual meetings, I note that it doesn't cover the neighbourhood plan steering group meetings, which I think, as we, as Rowan talked about earlier, we're moving through the stages now where we are generating policy, and policy in response really to community engagement, and I think the more people that we can get to hear those messages and see those messages, the better. And while clearly we will continue to engage the community and ultimately end in a referendum, I think it'd be great if we could promote those meetings. Sorry, that's it for me. Thank you.
Councillor Thomas. So, Councillor Thomas.
Nobody can hear me.
I just was going to highlight, have we agreed a date for our discussion on the local plan? I know it was out there as the 3rd or 4th.
I'm not sure. Town clerk, have we agreed a date? Oh, Councillor Perkin knows the answer.
Oh, sorry, I'm trying to let the town clerk in, but I don't think we can hear her properly.
No, it hasn't been agreed.
That's what I was just going to say. There was some communication this morning around it, but it hasn't been agreed yet.
Okay, no, thank you.
Councillor Irwin, did you mention to me you might want to put a little picture of the young man that did the logo?
Yeah, look, I think that would be really nice, but I'm just very aware that Claire has done typesetting for it now.
Yeah, maybe next time. Yeah. Next time. Yeah. So, are there any other comments on the newsletter? So we can propose we accept that with the alterations. Do we have a seconder?
Can I just ask if you've seen my point concern about councillor images?
No, I haven't. This is
I've just got a concern about including one or two councillors' images as this is going out before March. I think we should either include everybody's image or no images. Especially as we may expect a delay in the delivery because obviously the post office are not working at full capacity, and if it goes out after PERDA, we could be in trouble.
Oh, got two councillors in there at the moment, Town Clerk. 2 councillor images in there currently.
Well, which one are they?
So the mayor is on the mayor's update, as you might imagine, and Councillor Thomas is on 20's plenty. So I'd understand if it was policy before, and I get the PERDA point.
I'll probably seek guidance in the morning then from the monitoring officer on that.
I can easily send an alternative through, Louise, if needed.
All the articles have a name at the end as well, so I don't know if you consider that's an issue.
Given that none of the councillors at the moment are standing in the election, are they?
Oh, they raised the point that the only pictures she's actually got of you are the ones in your row.
So I don't think that's an image.
I mean, is that the?
So she raised that point to me, and I said, "Don't worry, that's fine." But if you're saying they weren't included because of PERDA, that's one thing, isn't it? But now saying it's because of roads is quite another. I'm happy to take this offline. I don't want to die in a ditch over it either. It's just an image.
No, well, you've got John as chair and you deputy. I mean, yes. Who?
Councillor Ben Martin. Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, the camera's finally given up for the night.
Yes, it has.
I was just going to say from the previous PERDA period when we did the inside swale just prior to the 2019 general election, we weren't able to have articles with councillors' names in it. Now, if we're saying we can't have photos because of PERDA, we wouldn't be able to have named articles either. So I think we've got to either say that it's intended to go out before the PERDA period begins, which I think is the general consensus, in which case PERDA doesn't matter. And if the Royal Mail are slightly late, the Royal Mail are slightly late. We've done everything in our power to get it out prior to PERDA. Alternatively, we say that it's not going to be out on time, and therefore we can't promote any councillors, and then it becomes, what do the articles say, and is there any opinion in it as opposed to fact, and that becomes very difficult. My personal view is that I would propose that we shift the colour back to green for this particular issue. That if possible, we try and get head and shoulders of the article writers in on the articles, and beyond that, I'm quite happy with the scope.
Do we have anyone to second that proposal? Councillor Barker? Can we vote on that?
I might just be the only one, but I'm not entirely sure what the proposal is. Can someone just
recap?
Yeah.
Go to green.
So the proposal is that the colour scheme goes back to the pea green for this issue.
For this one.
Yeah.
That where possible, head and shoulders images are included of the councillors that have written the articles on the articles.
Too little there.
We approve the remainder.
If it's possible to get them in the timescale. Councillor Martin?
Sorry, everyone's jumping around. And I think I probably, because I've got host access, it's thrown me around. I think also we include in that the changes proposed by Councillor Hook for the back page, which is the change to the comma on and the change to the amount on the rounding of the amount on the council tax part. Other than that, I think Councillor Saunders wanted to say something. I'm not sure.
Thank you. Yeah, I largely agree, or I agree with some of what Councillor Martin is proposing. I think I do agree that I think we should get on with it, and it's not our fault if the Royal Mail delays. I don't understand, and I can't really support the idea that we have like head portraits in there. I can't see the value of that. And for example, on the lottery item, which would have my head on, I think it would just take away from the message. I mean, I'm quite happy with the photo of Councillor Thomas, because I think that fits, but having heads for the sake of it just seems unnecessary to me.
Could I respond, Madam Mayor?
Madam Mayor, I think you need to unmute your mic.
Unmute. Is that, yes, Councillor Barker, sorry.
So, Councillor Saunders, the only reason I felt that it would be useful to have images of Councillor Owen and myself is that if people did want to engage us in the town about that issue, they would recognise us. Look, as Councillor Owen said, the typeface has been set, the space is set. I'm not going to die in a ditch over it. I'm genuinely not bothered. The green, I think, feels like a relatively trivial change. It doesn't affect the typeface.
Yeah, and the two changes. Yeah. I think it's right though. People in the town don't recognise the different councillors that well at the moment, and it would be good that they do recognise the councillors that are heading some of these projects and topics. I do, but I'll leave it up to you. Councillor Martin.
In that case, may I suggest that if it is possible on the neighbourhood plan articles, we put those, we put suitable photographs if they're available to the marketing officer. Yeah. If not, we go without them. And other than the other changes I propose, we accept as we have mentioned. I think the town clerk has managed to get down all of our comments.
Yes, I think so. And we can think more for the next newsletter that goes out, whether we need to get more people recognised a little bit more. Okay, so are we all voting on that now? We're going to change it to green, do the alterations, and if possible, picture of Councillor Owen and Barker on the neighbourhood plan. Are we all happy with that? Yes? Yeah. Right, thank you. So now we can move on to the annual meeting of the town. To agree the date of the annual meeting, we have, I think the town clerk said it had been May in the past, but the last meeting was moved forward to March. We didn't have one at all last year, I think. I don't remember there being one. So town clerk, come in if I'm wrong, but I think March would be a good time to have the town meeting. And although probably we can't be face to face, it will be a Zoom, and it will be the people invited that have been given grants, just to maybe say a few words about either what they've done or how the money was spent. And then of course we'll have the presentation of the Calc Award. And although on Zoom you can't quite do that, we can. Councillor Martin.
Yeah, I understand we need to agree a date for the annual town meeting. Maybe it's just me missing something, but what dates have been proposed? Have we got actual dates proposed for this?
Just being right. March 9th, 10th.
Excuse me, carry on. I think Town Clerk was about to get in there.
Did she get in? I was looking at 9th, 10th or 11th of March, or the following week. I don't, whichever.
I think they're sometimes a bit later than that, more like the 20th.
Is it?
I'm not sure. I'd be happy to go by the clock.
Have we lost the town clerk again?
Anybody hear me? Sorry, I've just.
Yep.
Hey, can anybody hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, you're there. Were you there?
Raise this is the concern that at the moment, from the 7th of May, we have to go back to face-to-face meetings. It's such a big meeting that it will be impossible to hold face-to-face. So my thought is we either need to think about having it at the beginning of March, or the likelihood is that it won't go ahead, because this is the meeting of the town, not the council, where we normally have groups that we have that we've given grants to. So my thought was, if we held it at the first couple of weeks of March, we could then invite groups to do a presentation via Zoom. Hopefully you've got the gist of that.
Yeah. Would the 9th, 10th or 11th of March that week, would that be too soon? Would there be an evening there that most councillors could make? That's Tuesday, Wednesday or Thursday, 9th, 10th or 11th. That's just a suggestion. Town clerk, does that work, or?
The 9th or 10th are good for me.
I think they're okay for me too.
Councillor Saunders? 9th or 10th? Oh, you're mute.
Sorry, I wasn't planning to speak. I can't actually do the 10th. I've got a swell meeting, but I mean...
The 9th? That's 2 for the 9th already. Can everyone else make the 9th? Yes, 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 yes. Oh, well, Councillor Perkin, you're looking like that might not work for you.
I have all kinds of work meetings, which I can't access my calendar for at the moment, but I will try to be there if I can.
Thank you. Oh, I think the majority would be town clerk. Could we try and pencil in the 9th? Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Right, so we've kind of pencil that in and see what we can do. Item 14, the open letter to KCC to consider adding the town council's name to the open letter by all parish council to Kent County Council on the subject of enforcement at East Kent Recycling. Do I have someone that will propose we accept that? KCC. Councillor Irwin?
Yes, Madam Mayor, yes, I propose we sign that letter.
Thank you.
Second
that. Councillor Saunders? You're seconding, or you have a comment?
No, sorry, I have a concern concern about the letter. It's at the end of the letter. There's currently within the what was agreed, the EKR have got to build these shelters for people using the footpath. My understanding, and this is through the Faversham Footpaths Group, which I'm on the committee of, is that EKR can't actually currently build these lay-bys because the land is actually owned by Brett's. Yeah. And as I understand it, there are discussions going on between KCC and Brett's about whether there's any possibility of a proper footpath being developed, which, I mean, this is now part of the England Coast Path, so there will be some resource around. So I think proposing that EKR are pushed to get these kind of areas where you can kind of stand off the road is probably not what should be being done at the moment. So I mean, I would have thought writing to all parish councils saying that we broadly support the letter, but we'd encourage them to try and work with EKR, Brett's and KCC to actually get a proper footpath there would be something they might want to consider or something.
Councillor Irwin?
Just on that, my understanding, and it could be a complete misinterpretation, is that they've been granted permission on the basis of building out these refuges. And I think you know, the fact, arguably, you know, what you're describing are process issues in terms of making it happen, but I think the fact is that it's a requirement and they haven't acted upon it. They shouldn't perhaps have agreed to fulfilling or meeting that requirement if they felt it was beyond their control. It just seems a little difficult. You know, it's not for us to work out why it's hard for East Kent Recycling. That's their problem. The issue is they're supposed to build them out and they're not doing it, and they're not complying with their planning consent. And that's my understanding, but perhaps I'm wrong.
Any other comments? So
I would suggest that we do sign it, but you know, we can vote on it.
Happy to second that.
And Councillor Barker will second. Could we vote on that?
But
no.
Before we continue, Madam Mayor, I think it was also worth pointing out that it's not just the pedestrian refuges that are subject of this letter. There are other elements of the planning permission which EKR have not met. And it does go into detail on that letter, on the open letter, detailing things such as excessive lorry movements, which were part of the planning condition. And therefore I would support signing such a letter.
All right, so you will second the letter. Anyone else with any other comments? Councillor Hook?
What Councillor Martin said there is completely correct, and the letter does refer to, and that's the long-standing issue there, actually, that planning permission, which was originally granted in the mid-1990s for a certain number of lorries, local people feel that's been ignored, and sometimes local people have made their own logs, which Kent County Council's planning department won't accept as good evidence. And I personally think they're wrong about that. Actually, anyone can be a witness of anything. You don't have to be a lorry observer with some sort of qualification to count the number of lorries. And the really frustrating issue is the refusal of the county council to take enforcement action. And this issue about the refuges and paths is just one more aspect of that. And Councillor Saunders makes some important points about the input. But having said that, if the planning permission is you shall not do X, Y, and Z on your site until refuges are done, then they need to make sure those refuges are done. And if they're not done, then they shouldn't be doing X, Y, and Z on their site. So the fundamental point is if planning permission is granted with conditions, those conditions need to be enforced. And I've just reread the letter while we've been talking. I feel that's what the letter says quite clearly. So I'm happy for us to sign it.
Thank you. So does anyone support? Yes, Councillor Saunders.
Okay, yeah, I'm not going to press my point because I agree totally with what people have said about the conditions. In fact, I remember speaking for the town council at the ACC planning meeting that we were opposed to the application. So I'm kind of happy for us to go along with the letter, but I think perhaps we should also be saying to all that there is a bit of a need for a discussion about the best solution here, and it might be that involving other officers in the public rights of way team at KCC is something that all should also be doing. I think, to be fair, the Faversham Footpaths Group is going to write and say that to all council anyway.
So maybe
I'll support the proposal that we.
Thank you. Thank you. Right, Councillor Irwin and seconded by Councillor Barker. Can we all vote on that? Thank you. Thank you. So now we have the receipts and payments to resolve to approve the payments. Councillor Barker.
Can I propose we accept?
Thank you. Yeah,
I'll second that.
through earlier. Thank you, Councillor Martin. And can we vote on that? I think that's carried. Thank you. I think that could be the end. Just thank everybody, all the committees, all of you working really hard. And I do think January has been a difficult month for everybody, but we're into February, so we're moving forward. So thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Right.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you and good night.